All right. Well, in the Halitics, I'm Hal Ginsberg. So glad to be talking today. It is a Monday. Hope you had a good weekend. I was up in New York. I told you all about that last week. I was going to be canvassing for New York mayoral candidate Zoran Mamdani. And I did that. And it was a pretty good weekend. The first day was real slow. I was at a polling place, an early voting place, and there were very few people who actually were out. It was hot, humid, not like today, not that oppressive, but it wasn't a day you'd really necessarily want to go outside. And this was 2 to 5. So it wasn't the time of day you might want to be out either if you were going to vote. So, whatever. I mean, I had some decent conversations, maybe 10, 12 people I spoke to, but it was a relatively small cadre of voters that I managed to encounter and have a dialogue with. One person was very interesting. I mean, we were urging people to vote Mamdani, Lander, maybe Lander, Mamdani. Either way was okay. I, of course, working for Mamdani. And also, if the opportunity arose to urge folks not to vote, not to rank Cuomo at all. And one woman I was speaking to, she was with her daughter who was also going to vote. I think they were, maybe like 45 to 50 for the mom, and maybe the daughter was 20 to 25, somewhere in that range, probably not quite that old. They were going to vote, and the mom spoke for both, and she said, well, we're not voting for Cuomo, but we're also not voting for Mamdani. We're going to vote for Lander. And I said, well, Lander's great. That's fine. And, she seemed to want to engage. There was no argument from me. I just said, well, let me tell you why I like Mamdani. And she expressed concerns about alleged anti-Semitism and some other factors. But I thought it was a good dialogue. It was a good back and forth. And perhaps I moved her a little bit, but it shows you the power of fear, the fear this guy could be a Jew hater, or he's giving comfort if you're Jewish. This fear, this primal anxiety, this worry that is just baked into the Jewish psyche. And so it was really in evidence there. And yesterday I was not in one place, rather I was knocking on doors. And it's interesting to canvass in New York. Usually, New York City, at least in my past experience, it's mostly been houses, maybe row houses, so at least they're close together. But this was very different. It was actually in apartment buildings. You had to wait to get into the building, wait till someone was coming out, because they all had electronic locks, so it was hard to get in. But once we got in, it was okay. And I just walked up these flights of stairs because waiting for the elevator was really unbearable. It was okay. The poll came out today. We'll talk about that in a little bit. That made things look good. At least made me feel better, definitely better about the way that election is going. We'll talk also about, this Fauxgressive, outbreak or outburst or what have you, this reaction to Cenk Uygur, who, well, frankly, from the Young Turks, didn't handle himself, I don't believe, very well. Didn't acquit himself particularly admirably on Crystal, Kyle, and friends. But nevertheless, his argument, his position is indisputably, undoubtedly the correct one. And the fact that a bunch of Fauxgressives piled on him, attacked him, tried to, shame him really tells you, I think, all you need to know about why we're in such a bad place, why we cannot seem to build a progressive movement, because a lot of the left, so-called, if you will, media, even in alternative spaces like YouTube, clearly is there to sheepdog for the Democratic Party. It's very, very unfortunate. We start, as almost always, and I shouldn't say start because I'm a couple of minutes into the program. By the way, call anytime, 240-242-5646, numbers on the screen. Anytime I'm live, of course, and I'd love to talk to you. Love your take on anything I have to say, or even if I haven't said it, maybe you think I should have said it, or you're waiting for me to say it. Jump ahead and tell me what I get wrong. The death toll continues to surge, of course, in Gaza after we've now expanded the military adventurism in the Middle East. I really can't call it a war, the war on the Gazan people. Israel has expanded into Iran, and we have joined Israel in that immoral, evil attack on Iran. We'll talk about that too. But focusing just for the moment on Gaza, death toll as of this morning, just south of 56,000 dead. That would be, I guess, if we do the math, somewhere around, there's about there were about 2.5 million Gazans. There are far fewer now. So we're looking at, if that number is accurate, it's almost certainly much higher, 2.5%, 3% now the population wiped out. A comparable number in the United States would be 10 million. 10 million. 39 people slain over the past 24 hours, according to Wafa news agency. That's from Palestine, and many wounded as well. Death toll since the ceasefire agreement was violated by Israel, 5685. So just a horrible, horrible situation there. It continues to be one of the worst place really to be on earth. I can't remember where I read this. I don't have the link or the site, but one person saying this may be in certain ways, and I do not think this is, well, I mean, I don't know. I always hate to rank crimes. I really do. I don't like to say, well, this person is worse than that because they killed this many more people or what have you. In terms of the raw number of people murdered, Israel is a piker compared, obviously, to the Nazis, apparently compared to Genghis Khan, compared to the number that were killed by the European colonial powers as part of the transatlantic slave trade. Those atrocities were many more dead resulted from them than what Israel's doing. But when you think about right now a so-called civilized 21st century country with all this military hardware that we're supplying, and they're just using it to starve people, shoot them when they try to get food, shooting children in the chest and head. I mean, this is a level of cruelty that's got to be as high as any we've seen, or it's as cruel as anything humanity has shown itself capable of. It's heartbreaking. It hurts me. It hurts me just to think about it, to talk about it. And the sort of question is it worth talking about? It's not just Israel either right now. I mean, we're witnessing collapse, and it's not slow motion. We're collapsing in fast motion. Is it worth even talking about? Maybe you just sort of, smoke them if you got them. Because, is this doing any good talking about it? Wringing our hands, crying, lamenting? 55,998 Gazans killed, 291 people Friday to Sunday, nearly 100 a day by Israel. From March 18 through today, Trump and Netanyahu have killed at least 5,685 Gazans, and very likely well over 2,000. I'll check and see. I don't see comments on Facebook. It's hard for me to jump all over the place. I really do want folks, to the extent possible, and I know it's not always easy, and there you go. I may have heard me for a second in echo. I just wanted to jump on the YouTube and see. Yeah, so I got music, Maria. I got some new people there. Hey, guys. Great to have you checking in on YouTube with the thumbs up, and I'm not sure if there's more in there than I'm missing, because it looks like there's some comments. So, well, great to see you. Famous curse. Now, this is not Chinese, but this I think is very, very appropriate for right now. The old, may you live in interesting times. And it certainly would seem to be a friend of mine commenting when I let them know I was doing today's program. I couldn't really spend too much time on the texting, right? The text app back and forth. How are you? How's your weekend? How about those Oklahoma City Thunder? And I made the point I had to get ready for the program, and they responded, there's a lot to talk about. And I thought immediately of this apocryphal Chinese curse, right? May you live in interesting times, because interesting times are often very, very rough for the people who live in them. And certainly I'd say that includes today, although for me, times aren't particularly bad at all. I mean, I'm doing well. I always, when people say, I feel bad for you because you're all upset, I'm like, well, don't feel bad for me. Feel bad for the people I'm upset about, because they're the ones suffering. But no question, we live in interesting times. I note with the star, apocryphal or asterisk, apocryphal Chinese curse, and then real life English one, because yeah, it looks like this was just made up by some English or maybe American. I think there's some question, did it originate in the UK or England or in the United States? But either way, we can say English because that's the language, English, that we speak here and there, although somewhat different. Want to get to some comments. I promise you we will get to the video segments that I've cut for you where I really go after, I think I do. I hope I'm really aggressive, assertive in my criticism of some of these, quote, progressive, unquote, hosts, self-described, and I've got the Rational National. I've got this guy Figueredo. I'm not sure how he calls himself something progressive. There's a Rational National, something progressive. The Vanguard, those guys really grind my gears. And then Crystal and Kyle as well, all really, really rankled me. Mike Figueredo, that's that guy's name. And they all have huge, by the way, huge audiences. I mean, hundreds of thousands, if not millions of subscribers. So get me there, subscribe. Halitics, we do it a little differently than those places. We're not we're not caping for anybody. We're just trying to be honest. We're not trying to protect the Democratic Party or captured by our audience that just wants to hear how awful MAGA is and wants to feel a certain sense of superiority, of moral rectitude versus the other side. Now, that's not what we're about here. We're about trying to get at the truth. And the truth is maybe ugly, but in and of itself, but it's beautiful to the seeker. At least that's what we hope. And I'm not so arrogant to believe I have the truth, so please, when I get it wrong, let me know. 240-242-5646. You can also join us on Facebook. Love the back and forth on Facebook. A lot of people there, a lot of people checking us out on Facebook. So join Halitics on Facebook 24/7. Want to just feature a few more criticisms of Hal. This is in response to the Friday free-for-all, and I'm not sure what Gary was exactly upset about that I had said. I don't know quite when this was in response to what statement by me. But Gary didn't like my very, very aggressive criticism of Israel and my support for Iran versus Israel. And they write, how enthusiastic was your support of the October 7 attacks, meaning when Hamas attacked Israel? And do you wish you could have joined in on the fun with the capital letters? Well, obviously that's just a troll comment. It's not designed to try to get to the truth or anything. But I think their underlying point was, hey, you're supporting people who are terrorists, who are evil, who are monstrous. So, were you happy when they committed this crime on the 7th? And my response is, well, hey, wait a second. That can't be a defense. Is that your defense? Is that somehow it's okay for Israel to now go completely all in on genocide because of October 7th? That gives them a pass? Because, see, this is what I hear when people say, oh, well, what do you think about, did you condemn Hamas? Did you this? Did you that? And, well, first of all, Hamas is the oppressed. They represent the oppressed. Yes, they did commit a crime. Yes, they went into Israel and they killed a lot of people. It's true. No argument there. I certainly feel bad for those people. If I was there, if I lost a loved one, I would be incredibly upset, as I am. But this is what happens when you persecute and oppress other people. They're angry. They react. And sometimes those reactions lead to very, very tragic consequences. But ultimately, we cannot lose sight of the fact that Israel has been keeping Palestinians in an open-air concentration camp for, at a minimum, you don't want to go back to 47, let's just say in Gaza, since at least 2007 when they started their blockade, their siege. So this is what happened. So yeah, I feel bad for the dead, of course. I wish it hadn't happened. But that's in no way any kind of excuse or justification for Israel's crimes. Israel's responsibility in response to those crimes was to take their foot off the throat of the Palestinian people instead of what they did do, which was to push down even harder. We focus here on Halitics on the worst challenges we face, the most existential threats. I wish there weren't so many, or there weren't any, but tragically there are. On the East Coast now, it's about 100 degrees. I mentioned I was canvassing for Mom Donnie. I was walking up not down. I walked up these towers on the Lower East Side. It's called Stuytown. You may be familiar with it. Had to get in there. Was able to. They don't have central air. They have air in the units, I'm sure, but they don't have central air. So the common areas were very hot, very stifling, no windows, no air, no movement. And the way I got around was I would walk up and down, up the stairs, not down. When I got to the top of each tower, then I would take the elevator down. But I didn't go from floor to floor by elevator because it was just too slow. They have 2 elevators for these towers, and it takes forever. So, I just walked up the stairs, which was fine. But today it would be unbearable. It was at like 92 yesterday. Now I think it's over 100 in New York. Here's what USA Today reports today at 1:30 p.m. Eastern. Rare and dangerous, record-smashing heat wave to scorch tens of millions. This is unquestionably secondary to, you say unquestionably, it's record-smashing, right? We've had record after record. Today's the 25, 24 was the hottest year in record. I think 23 before that was the hottest year in record. We had about 18 straight months where each month was the hottest month ever. So the hottest July, the hottest August, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. I don't think each month was the hottest. I don't think they were the hottest ever among all months, but for that month, for about 18 months, each month was the hottest. Unbelievable. So clearly, this is secondary to human activity. There's no question. This is what was predicted, at least going back as far, really going back to the 19th century. Google Svante Arrhenius, Arrhenius. He said, a Swedish, I believe, physicist, scientist of some sort, said, hey, we burn fossil fuels. It's going to create a greenhouse effect. It's going to allow the solar radiant energy will continue to come on into the Earth's, to the Earth's crust, to the Earth's surface, causing it to heat up. But less heat will radiate away from the Earth through, really, it doesn't radiate, it would be convection, right? Convection, where the heat goes into the air from the Earth and then goes up into the atmosphere. We get less of it. The greenhouse effect created or amplified by the CO2, the added CO2 will cause the temperature to keep getting hotter on the planet. And that's exactly what we've seen. It was predicted, and it's happening. It's happening consistent, almost exactly consistently with what scientists have been warning about, as I mentioned, since the 19th century, but certainly since the 70s, 80s. We know ExxonMobil's scientists knew it, and they deliberately hid the evidence. So this is what's happening. We're all scorching. We're all suffering as a result of our continued use of fossil fuels. And I got this comment, I told you, in my text group. So this was from one of my text buddies who was complaining about how a conservative text buddy and also a religious text buddy complaining about the heat. But as I mentioned, conservative is someone who has also tended to be one of the more of a Panglossian view. The world isn't so bad. It's better now than it used to be. So here's the response. Well, from them, my phone claims it's 94, feels like 97, but downtown it's definitely over 100. And they were saying they're going to just wear shorts tonight to an event. And I wrote in response, if only God would send us a sign that we're destroying his creation. Now, do I believe in a God? I mean, I don't know. I always call myself some kind of a skeptic or a agnostic. I don't reject the possibility of a supernatural being or beings. No, I don't believe in a God. I don't believe in a spaghetti monster in the sky or anything like that. But this is talking to somebody who does, who is a believer. And I'm like, yeah, well, if only your God would send us, and they believe that God is a male, is a he. So fine, if only God would send us a sign. I kind of think he is. I kind of think that's exactly what we're going through right now. Very, very obvious warning signs. My old friend, what's her name? Rebecca Costa. She does a radio show. She wrote a book called The Watchman's Rattle, saying, "Hey, all these, the heat waves, the melting glaciers, all the outbreaks of malaria, etc., and other fevers. This is the Watchman's Rattle. This is the Earth's rattle. We're in our death throes, really." And I was right. She was right. But what's disappointing about that is that she didn't, I don't believe, have the courage to say, well, this means we have to totally change everything we do. We have to move to a very, very different economic model, a different political landscape. I still believe in democracy. I don't want to throw out electing our representatives, electing our president. No, I want to keep doing that, but we have to do it in a very, very different and much more intelligent way than we have. That I didn't get that message from Rebecca. Maybe that's not fair to her. Just a few more commentary from my text buddies. Iran just attacked our CENTCOM base in Qatar. Now what? And one buddy, I think they're trying to be funny here, not serious, nuke them. And I respond that what we should do is what Israel should have done after they were attacked, or after the Nova Music Festival massacre. They should have said, and this is what we should say now, we apologize for our murderous behavior of the past 80 plus years. And I go back to World War II, right? Because I want to just sort of exempt World War II and say, well, all right, well, that was it was a just war, although we shouldn't have bombed. Terrible what we did in Japan. But, and you can include that in there, but let's just, sort of start history then. We'll stop it. We'll stop what we're doing. We'll stop supporting Israel. We'll stop exporting terror. That's what we should do. Now, of course, that's not what we're going to do. That's what we should do. Just a few more comments. Let's see. Trying to be, who is music? I'd love to know who music is, who's commenting. Oh, lots of comments. Also, Amber, Q2 ends in 1 week. Almost a recession. I like both parties are traitors. Very cool name. 240, agreed. They are traitors. Absolutely. They're traitors. 240-242-5646. I posted this Saturday. Some pushback, some people liking it, a lot of comments on social media. And I'm going to highlight one of the responses. But, I was criticized for this from somebody I care a lot about. And I pointed out that this was in partial response to the fact that Israel, and actually this was over a week ago, Israel had sent they have some sort of new weapon, they call it some specialized weapon. They just killed 9 nuclear scientists. These are just scientists. They just killed them in their beds, in their houses. An absolute war crime. And, the people got all upset, and rightly so, right? I understand the Hamas attacks were so vicious. What about this? It's not the same in numbers, obviously, as the music festival, but people are in their homes, in their beds, and then they're just killed. They're just dead. They're just off. Or when Israel somehow got little explosive devices into people's cell phones. That's terrorism. Isn't that all worthy of condemnation? And the one major difference is Israel is the oppressor nation. Israel is not the oppressed. Israel isn't lashing out at an oppressor. Israel is the criminal country. So I posted Israel as a cancer. I got this response from an old, I won't say so old, but a high school friend. And it was nice to get their post, certainly. And I think they're pretty staunch Zionists, but maybe that's not completely accurate, but that's been my sense from some of their posts. So the response was, we'll now do 100 years from now without Israel, which I think was trying to say, hey, we'll all be in real trouble, meaning Jews, right? Because the person who posts this is Jewish. We'll all be in a lot of trouble without Israel. And I responded, well, I don't think we have 10 years, much less 100. And then they engage, what do you foresee? And I really do. And I think we're seeing it. I don't just foresee it. I think it's happening right now. Political, environmental, economic collapse. So, the environmental, we see it right now. We see it in the Great Extinction. We see these triple-digit temperatures. The economic collapse, unaffordable cities, homeless people, instead of being provided homes, instead of being guaranteed a place to sleep, or just simply being rounded up and pushed out of town. political collapse, there doesn't seem to be any real, with some exceptions, there doesn't seem to be really any willingness to come together, any coalescence. I think that is a word, coalescence, to create a political reality that works for the great majority of poor, struggling, working people. That just isn't there. And, a perfect example of that is the New York Times. Right? I mean, they urge you to vote for Cuomo, not Mamdani, and this incredibly corrupt, pro-genocide, serial sexual harasser. And that's who the New York Times, supposedly the progressive leader, if you will, certainly the voice, the news leader for sure, the paper of record, and this is what they're telling you to do, supposedly left liberal. So I think this is all example of our whole system really collapsing in on itself. And it's very sad, and as it happens in real time, you can't always see it, right? You're not always, you can't see the forest for the trees, but this seems pretty clear. Now there is and by the way, thanks for all the comments. I am seeing you guys. It's just hard for me to focus too much on them, so I don't spend too much time on the comments. If you want to talk to me, love to talk to you. 240-242-5646. Very easy. And I checked the ringer. It should ring. If it doesn't, well, that's on me. Sorry about that, folks. CBS News. I was one of the few things that really brought me a little joy, a little light in the darkness. And this is from CBS News today, 11:49 a.m. So just came out. New poll shows Mamdani beating Cuomo. I was so psyched to see this. And you know what else? It wasn't like some kind of weird poll where they like oversampled texters or some pollster that was commissioned by, Mamdani. This is a very reputable poll. I'm not saying they're going to be right, but this is an independent poll. And this is the first poll that has Mamdani winning the election. There was one that Mamdani sort of commissioned, but not really, but some political ally had commissioned that showed him winning in the first round. But that doesn't mean he wins the whole thing because they have ranked choice voting, which I love ranked choice voting. I'm so psyched about ranked choice voting. I think it's awesome because you know what? Like people who vote for Lander, they'll pick Mamdani too. And that means Mamdani can beat Cuomo. And I'll tell you another great thing about ranked choice voting, even if in the end it doesn't work out, is that the winner can really claim a mandate. Yes, I know they didn't all vote for me on the first round, but in the end, more people wanted me to be the mayor than they wanted the other guy. Clearly. It's not like I won 35-33, but who knows where the other, the people who didn't vote for either of us wanted. This way, we go down the list. There's an argument, well, the person that was the most acceptable was the third place finisher, but they didn't get enough first place votes. Well, you know what? If you don't excite enough people to vote for you, one, maybe you don't deserve to be mayor. And that is my view. A new Emerson College. So again, this is a reputable pollster. I don't know how great they are. And The Hill is a reputable media outlet. Has Mamdani neck and neck. Cuomo slightly ahead in the first round, but Mamdani beats him in its ranked choice voting simulation after 8 rounds. So they eliminate 8 people, and then Mamdani wins, or 7 people, I guess. Yeah, 7, because the first round is nobody's eliminated. So the second round, 1 person, third round, 2, etc. So after 7 eliminations, you get Mamdani at 50+%. And see, this is how it works. Cuomo has the most in the first round, more first place voters say Cuomo than anybody else. More voters have Cuomo first, then second is Mamdani with first, voters picking him first. Lander is third with 13%. How does Mamdani jump Cuomo if he's behind in the first round? Well, a higher percentage of the Lander voters are putting Mamdani ahead of Cuomo. So in the end, after Lander and maybe some other candidates are eliminated, Mamdani gets more votes. And that's how he wins. I really like that. Probably the same is definitely true for Adrienne Adams as well. They're more progressive. Either way, the election in November will probably include both Mamdani and Cuomo on the ballot, along with Eric Adams and maybe one or two others. I think could Mamdani win, even if he doesn't win the Democratic primary? I mean, it's possible. I think it's unlikely. He really needs to win this. And I do think if he wins this, he's in really good shape. Because I don't think that many, I think there'll be a number of Democratic voters who are sort of in the middle who won't vote for Cuomo. If Mamdani is the Democratic nominee. And I do think probably Cuomo and Adams will be splitting the center-right vote in New York City. So hopefully Mamdani can pull this out, can squeeze it out. That poll gave me a little bit of optimism. And I was up there, I'm canvassing, I'm asking people to vote for Zohran Mamdani. I'm making the case for him, saying, hey, this is the candidate who's focused on affordability. The city is wholly unaffordable, which it is, right? Except if you're like an investment banker or a corporate lawyer. And I picked those professions deliberately because they're like incredibly highly paid, and there's a lot of them. And they're sucking up a lot of the wealth and a lot of the resources in New York City. Okay, my topic, what I use for my thumbnail, and I use this term Fauxgressives a lot because the people who say they're progressive, but they push you to do things that are not progressive, that aren't going to make America a better place, that aren't going to get us to closer to a world where everyone has enough and no one has too much. So because of that, they're fauxgressive. They're in it for themselves. They're not arguing for the courage of their conviction. And I have gone after Kulinski especially. He's on this. I know I've sort of covered him up, but you can see there's Kyle, there's Crystal. I sometimes like Crystal. I don't always hate these people. David Dole, I've never featured him. He's a rational national. Mike Figueredo. I never feature him, and I rarely, maybe I mentioned the Vanguard a couple of times. They're really noxious. I used to kind of like Dole and Figueredo, but I don't anymore, right? I mean, they just are, they're just standard issue, AOC, squad Democrats. They're big on the identity politics, and they're big on the woke stuff, and they're not focused, not nearly sufficiently, to my way of thinking, on economic justice, on economic populism. They also are about shaming voters they don't like, and no one who vote for people they don't like. And no one is worse. No one is a bigger shamer than this guy, the guy with the white hair in this. And why did he dye his hair white? It's kind of interesting. He's kind of got that, if you know who Brock is, David Brock, he's kind of meaning Kulinski. This thumbnail that he uses, I think is very unflattering towards Kulinski, the one on the left, rather than, I don't think Cenk comes out looking badly in this thumbnail, actually, but the way Kulinski is finger pointing and his mouth is open and his time, he looks bad there, right? And this is from him. This is from his, this is taken from his channel, Secular Talk, which is the only place I could find I could find the video snippets, right? And I couldn't find the whole video. I think it's behind a paywall. I couldn't even find the Crystal, Kyle, and Friends page or channel. I guess they have a channel. I'm not really sure. They have a logo. But this I found on Secular Talk. I cut and paste it from various sources because I'm going after a bunch of them, right? Not just Kyle and Crystal, but like I mentioned, the Rational National guy, Figueredo, and the Vanguard boys. So let's start with this clip. And I'm not even sure where we are. I think it's going to be Crystal introducing Cenk, but maybe I'm wrong about that. Let's go to it.
So you said in November 29th, 2024, I've been trying to figure out why I'm more optimistic now than I was before the election.
So I'm going to stop it right now. So she's starting, meaning Crystal, and I hate when these things pop up. I got to do something about those ads. When Crystal's starting right there, talking about why she and Kulinski, her husband, Kyle Kulinski, are having this discussion with Cenk, and he wanted to actually have it. And it goes back to a conversation she had with him. And he had tweeted this out. And to me, this is a really, I mean, look, this is not about defending Cenk. I think Cenk comes off looking pretty poorly in a lot of ways in this back and forth. But in the end, he's right. We need to engage with MAGA. We need to speak to the MAGA voters. We need to talk to them like they are adults, like they are voters, like they are rational beings, which they mostly are. Just like we have plenty of our own problems in our... I will never shame a Trump voter because the Democratic alternative was arguably as bad and only slightly less bad from my perspective, if she was less bad at the time. I think subsequent events would bear out the fears that some progressives had about Trump, that were even the seriousness of what he's done is so bad. It's so serious that, yeah, maybe I'll say I did. I won't say maybe. I understated. I didn't think Trump would be as bad as he is. But we don't know how bad Kamala would be. And based on the way she campaigned, she would have been awful too. All right, here's this tweet.
Even though I was so against the guy who won, I know now MAGA is not my mortal enemy, neither is the extreme left. My mortal enemy is the establishment, and they have been defeated.
All right, so I don't really buy that. I don't understand that tweet at all. I don't know why you would be more optimistic, Cenk, than before the election. You're saying it's because the establishment was defeated, but Trump is clearly part of the establishment too. Now he's a little bit more of a thorn in the side. He has bad manners. He doesn't respect all of the Washington etiquette and protocols. So for that, he's a little bit gauche, right? But his policies are pretty much in line with a few, and there were a few exceptions, not for Medicare for all, not for wealth redistribution, totally in support of lower taxes, lower capital gains taxes. Yeah, I will say the tariffs scared a few people, right? So there were a few little ways that Trump was not quite full on board establishment the way Kamala, but not much of a difference really in the end. Pretty similar. Maybe she talked about lethal military, but they're pretty much peas in a pod, really. So you shouldn't have been optimistic, Cenk. That was a weird take. Why would you be optimistic that Trump won?
The course of that conversation, you explained to me that the reason you felt optimistic was really two reasons. Number one, as you say there, the establishment was defeated. And number two, you felt
which it wasn't.
The elements of the...
All right. So that's where I have a big issue, right? I mean, he's wrong there. So a big doubt about that. The initial take by Uygur. But his bottom line is we need to talk to these people. These are Americans. We need to vote. We need to recognize they vote. We need to understand their concerns. They're not just corrupt warmongers the way many representatives are, Congress members are. They're not just plutocrats. They're not like a plutocrat like Elon Musk is a plutocrat, or the way Trump is a plutocrat, or the way the guy from the Hyatt hotel chain, right? What's his name? Pritzker is, right? Those are plutocrats. Those are the billionaires who run our country. The MAGA voters aren't that. And their concerns should be heard. They shouldn't just be rejected out of hand or shamed. So Cenk is right.
That's all we've seen.
Is MAGA a fascist movement? Just give me a yes or no.
All right, so that was where that shot got a lot of play. And they talk so fast, it's very frustrating. But I'll play it again. So what the question is, the total gotcha by Kulinski, is MAGA a fascist movement? Right? So that's the end of the conversation. Yes, it is, obviously, and therefore we can't even talk to them. We can't have anything to do with them. They're fascist. It's the end of the conversation. That's the point that Kulinski is trying to make, to try to box Cenk in. And he doesn't handle it very well. This is the opening. I couldn't find the original of this. And in other words, I didn't find it buried in a long back and forth. So I have to go with their they're featuring it at the beginning of the program.
Left and liberals banding together and going through the court system and public pressure. That's it. That's all we've seen.
Is MAGA a fascist movement? Just give me a yes or no.
That's an absurd framing, Kyle. That's mainstream media framing.
You can't.
All right, so I don't agree that it's absurd framing. It's very pointed. It was designed to shut down all conversation. But I think a better answer would have been, yeah, there are definitely fascistic elements to MAGA. I'm not going to say it's pure fascism. You want to say, is it A or is it B? That's like, there are shades of gray. That's what I would say. There are certain aspects to it that are very worrisome, that seem designed to shut down any conversation, any debate. But just because the movement itself has fascistic elements doesn't mean, this is what I think he should have said, doesn't mean we don't talk to people who are in that movement. And also, I would have responded and said, what about the Democrat Party? Kyle, yes or no? Is the Democratic Party democratic? Is it? Is it about representing the people? Is it about doing what the voters want? Yes or no? That's how I would respond, because you're going to try to put me in a box like that. I'm going to go right back after you. It's not an even conversation if you're just going to attack MAGA and point out all the bad aspects of it without acknowledging just how complicit the Democratic Party is, Democratic policies, Democratic leadership is in pushing working class people away, pushing them into a right-wing populist movement like MAGA, and how the policies of the Democrats are also neo-fascistic. Is a proxy war with Russia? Would you call that neo-fascistic? Klinsky stopping peace? Having as your cabinet foreign ministers in your cabinet, all of them coming right out of the military-industrial complex, all of them working for weapons manufacturers. Is that fascistic, Kyle? Is refusing to hold Israel accountable in any way for a genocide? Is that fascistic, Kyle? See, you can't let these people bully you. You have to turn it around. I talked about this yesterday with last program I did Friday with Mamdani, when he's attacked. Oh, well, you said that there's a global jihad or global intifada, right? A global intifada. Oh, I'm not anti-Semitic, right? That's how he responded. No, you turn around and say, are you kidding me? Of course there's going to be uprising against the terrible injustices perpetrated by Israel. So you do that to Klinsky. You don't like MAGA? You don't like the fascist elements? Kyle, well, I don't either. So let's build a better party. Let's appeal to the MAGA voters and bring them on board. That's the response you should be giving to this bastard. All right, let's play a little more from, and again, this is supposed to make Cenk look bad, right? And he doesn't look great. But look at Klinsky. He looks totally unhinged here. Totally. And he is unhinged. I think this is from Figueredo. I'm not sure. Let me play it.
This debate, in my opinion.
No, national. So that's David Dole. And this is where he's, in my opinion. Now, one thing about David Dole, I will say for him, is he's very calm, cool, and collected. Like, he doesn't get all exercise. He doesn't yell. He sounds very reasonable, which is a good, it's good to have that trait. I'm not saying I agree with him, because I don't, but he does seem reasonable.
Kyle absolutely nails it.
Well, if the leader of the movement is a fascist, then the movement is a fascist movement.
Yeah.
Right?
Well, say if the leader of the movement is a fascist, it's a fascist movement. See, again, you want this very simple-minded takes, right? Okay, so their leader is Trump, and he's a fascist, right? Well, there's certainly elements of fascism to Trump. But then on the other hand, he did campaign. And I know you can mock it and say, oh, it isn't true that he wasn't going to start new wars. And he didn't in his first term. And he has tried to avoid war with Russia. But yeah, he's spiraled for sure. But that's like the very, very simplistic. Ooh, look at her smirk. I got you there. If the leader's a fascist, it's a fascist movement. Yeah, okay. Let's even go along with your framing Crystal, it's a fascist movement, except that doesn't mean everyone in it is only responsive to fascist arguments. That doesn't mean that the people who are in the movement might not respond if you talk to them about healthcare, about how we will, Trump said you'd get healthcare, you haven't. He's cutting your healthcare, right? Trump said you would get peace. He was going to bring peace, and he isn't. He's going to bring us war. So they're so wrong. They're so misguided. I want to call them stupid. Because look, Trump is betraying his base, right? He's absolutely this horrible war on the people of Iran now. And we responded. We attacked. I guess they responded to us. But, our military is just so powerful. It can just do so much damage and kill so many people. And Trump has betrayed his base. His base doesn't want this. So you talk to them. You explain, hey, we can do better. We have a better way. And you know what Klinsky and Ball are saying? Oh, no, we're not going to talk to them. It's a fascist movement. I mean, I don't want to call it stupid because they have really big subscriber bases. And I'm guessing their subscribers like this crap. But it's so harmful. It's so destructive. And again, we're circling the drain right now. We don't have time to indulge our prejudices, our self-righteousness, our arrogance. That's why we are where we are now. We have to talk intelligently. We have to be able to persuade people who may not agree with us on a lot, but they do agree with us on war and peace, I presume. They do, because maybe Klinsky and Ball don't want peace. I know that Trump won in 2016 because in part, and I know this for a fact because studies were done that showed that many of his voters were folks who had suffered casualties. A very high percent, right? He won a disproportionate number of voters, especially in swing states, from families that had suffered disproportionately as a result of the Gulf War, W's Gulf War, which Trump said was a big mistake, a terrible mistake, and its aftermath. So Trump also got a number of Palestinian voters and others sat on their hands because of Kamala's pro-genocide position. So to simply sit there with this smirk like you somehow owned Cenk because, if it's a fascist leader, then it's a fascist movement. That's just crap. It's just it's not that you're stupid, Crystal, because you're doing real well. It's that you're treating your audience like they're a bunch of morons. That's the problem with what you just said.
Cenk, we have mass kidnappings and abductions and human traffickings with no due process from ICE Gestapo thugs. They raided schools, meatpacking facilities, farms, Home Depots.
Right. So he's getting all angry. It makes no sense. Of course, Trump sucks. We get it. See, this is where Cenk where his tweet was off. Oh, I'm more optimistic. He shouldn't have been optimistic. We could foresee this was going to happen. But use this to appeal to his base. Use the really bad things that Trump is doing to try to appeal to his base. I don't get how the Rational National thinks that he somehow, meaning Klinsky, somehow just owned Cenk. I just don't get it. It's just, the argument is ultimately, do we try to appeal to Trump voters or don't we? That's the real question. And I don't understand why anyone would argue we don't. Of course we should reach out to voters, especially if they've demonstrated a responsiveness to the issues that we care about. And they have. Peace, healthcare, those are big issues for many Trump voters.
And that's why we all worked so hard to make sure that Trump didn't win, because we saw all of those authoritarian tendencies. But the way you just framed it, attacks the voters, because you said MAGA, not Trump.
Why do I have to cut?
So now this is his, so Cenk nails it. Absolutely. This is the part that this Rational National thinks is so brilliant, where Kyle responds. Or with the comment, well, if they're a fascist leader, then they're fascists, aren't they? But Cenk is saying, hey, look, yeah, Trump is bad. I get it. Although that makes you look bad, Cenk, because why'd you ever say it would be good? You were feeling optimistic. I mean, I wasn't optimistic when Trump won. I was like, the only thing you feel optimistic about is maybe we can finally build a real progressive movement. Maybe we can get people on the left to abandon the Democratic Party and reach out and reach across the aisle. And obviously, that's not going to happen because you see what Kulinski is trying to do here, which is just shame and embarrass and humiliate anyone who voted for Trump. But listen to his Kulinski's unhinged response.
Worked so hard to make sure that Trump didn't win because we saw all of those authoritarian tendencies. But the way you just framed it, attacks the voters because you said MAGA, not Trump.
Why do I have to coddle their fucking feelings, Cenk? Why can't I just tell the truth?
I'd like to win.
Yeah, and that's exactly the answer. And by the way, Kulinski is so foul-mouthed. I always hated that. I don't have to worry about cursing like I did when I did radio. But you don't coddle people's feelings anyway. You talk to them about the issues that matter to them. And you explain, to the extent there's an overlap, how the policies that you support will make their lives better. And why do you do that? Because you want to win, because you want to make America a better place, because you want life to be better for the MAGA voter, and you want life to be better for the progressive voter. That's why you do it. And you don't make excuses for Democrats, and you don't lie about Democrats, and you don't defend Democrats, and you don't sheepdog for them. You build a movement that will bring about better outcomes for those voters. That's what you do. But you know what? If you're Kyle Kulinski, you're probably making hundreds, maybe even $1 million, hundreds of thousands of friggin' dollars with you and your wife and your merch and all your ads and everything else. I don't know if it's $1 million, but you're making well into the six figures, I would guess. And I don't know if you're writing books, but you probably will. So for you, life is good. And it's so easy to look. And what do you do for a living? You talk. You sit behind a microphone and you act like you're all special and smart. You get your hair colored. What the hell does that have to do with everyday Americans' lives? This is really, and I said, this is why we can't have good things, because we follow people like that. All right, here's just from those Vanguard boys, and then I'll call it a show.
Why are you okay with the right playing by different rules, Cenk? Why are you? Because the right,
So that's the thing. Well, they can say all sorts of horrible things about our voters. So why can't we? You know, it's like, again, do you want to win? Obviously, his winning me is not our winning. His winning is getting lots and lots of clicks and lots of subscribers. It's not about positive change for America.
Last election, a speaker at one of Trump's rallies at MSG came out and said the whole party of Democrats are degenerates, Jew haters, and lowlives. Trump calls Democrats the enemy from within and says we should use the military against them, and then he does use the military.
It's true. Trump goes after Democrats. But when Trump is talking to voters, he doesn't insult the voters that he's trying to reach. He's very smart. He's very shrewd. He attacked, for example, and they're going to say, I guess the person that Kulinski's talking about attacks Democrats as Jew haters. So that's actually really friggin' smart, because what he's trying to do is bring Jews over to vote for Trump. So he's saying, hey, that party, they hate you. So vote for us. What the Democrats are saying to the working class Trump voter is, we hate you. You're stupid. You're a fascist. You're a moron. The Kulinskis and the Rational National and Mike Figueredo, they're insulting the very people they should be trying to appeal to. What Trump does is he attacks the Democratic Party in an effort to bring over the voter he's targeting. Who are you trying to convince? Who are you trying to bring into the fold when you call the MAGA voter a fascist? Who's going to vote for you when you do that?
Let's talk about that, Cenk.
Because I yelled at
No,
MAGA.
let's talk about that.
This is your old strategy. Cenk,
Hey,
what I'm doing is your old strategy.
So they aren't listening. I mean, Cenk, look, he's a hothead and he loses it. And he's not even that smart, to be perfectly honest with you. He had a good idea with the TY2. I give him that. But he's made a lot of mistakes in his arguments. But in the end, he's right. We need to talk to each other. We need to recognize that Democratic and Republican leadership has zero concerns for us. They don't have our interests. They don't have our best interests at heart. They don't have our interests at heart at all. They don't care about us. They care about feathering their nests at all costs.
Sure.
No,
Okay,
stop.
great.
No.
Sure, Kyle.
What I'm doing
gonna say, that's
is
the
your
wrong
old strategy, Cenk.
And it is
I'm
also
doing TYT's
terrible
old
because I'm trying
strategy.
super hard not to say it's a dumb strategy.
Why
I'm trying
are you
super hard to say
okay
it, not
with the
say it.
right playing by different rules, Cenk? Why are you? Because the right, I saw this last election. A speaker at one of Trump's rallies at MSG came out and said the whole party of Democrats are degenerates, Jew haters, and low lives. Trump calls Democrats the enemy from within.
So he says that the whole party of Democrats is Jew haters, but obviously they're Jewish Democrats. They know they're not Jew haters. They're saying to themselves, gee, because of the way Trump framed Biden as soft, too hard on Israel, too soft on Palestine. Of course, it's all lies. But they figure the soft spot and they go after it. They go after the Democrats to appeal to the Democratic voter base. That's what, if you wanted to win, you would do if you were a Democrat. You'd say, Republicans are just a bunch of bosses. Remember when Obama said, and this was really smart, Obama said Romney looks like the guy who fired you. Or someone said that about Romney, right? Like he's smirky and smarmy. The Republican Party is the party of the bosses, right? Well, that sounds like you're insulting Republicans, but you're saying to people, they're not bosses. They know the guy who works on the factory, the assembly line, the guy who's driving a truck. He knows. She knows she's not a boss. And she says to herself, gee, yeah, they're not really my party. Because you're thinking to yourself, how can I put a crowbar between some of the Republican voters and the Republican leadership and bring them to me? That's what Obama was doing when he said, Romney looks like the guy who fired you. When Kyle says MAGA's fascist, he's saying to MAGA, I write you off. You're not part of this. You don't get to be in this conversation. Which is going to win?
Within and says we should use the military against them, and then he does use the military against them. He called us fascists and communists, and he's sitting in the fucking White House now. He was belligerent.
The guy's so foul-mouthed, right? Listen to him. And this is supposed to be some sort of ownership by Kyle owning Cenk. I don't see it.
And he got to the White House. Why can't we be belligerent and have a little bit of swagger back?
And now they love that. Look, see, that's where I really want to show that, because then they start there whistling and applause. Why can't we be belligerent back? Be belligerent, but be belligerent in ways that you're standing up for working people, not insulting them. Be belligerent back when you say, Trump's cutting healthcare for rural hospitals. There are going to be more of them closing. You're going to have to drive 3 hours if your wife gets sick. Be outraged about that. These people, they don't be outraged. Oh, can you believe it? They don't want trans girls competing against girls in high school sports. Yeah, be all outraged about that. When 75% of Americans think that high school athletes should compete against those who were born the same sex as they were. So, I mean, Democrats get it, or at least these people, these whatever the hell they are, not progressives, get it completely wrong in every way. One other point now, you got to be pro-peace. You really do. There was one other where I think Crystal sort of thought she owned Cenk, and I really do want to show you that, because there was a clip, there was a graphic they showed that supposedly proved that you can't reach MAGA. You can't reach them. These people are beyond any, they're never going to be on our side. So this was where Cenk was saying, let's talk to MAGA about war issues. That, a lot of MAGA really wants peace. They don't agree with endless war. That's why, and I made that point, it's true, that's why some of them voted for Trump, because they didn't like the war that Harris was all in for in Ukraine, and they didn't like the killing in, the turkey shoot that Israel is engaging in Palestine. So here's Crystal's response.
War movement. Put element number 3 up on the screen. Do you know? Tell me how many Republicans have signed on to the War Powers Resolution.
So this is supposed to be her own. Like, hey, you're saying that MAGA is pro-peace, right? But look, none of them, or virtually none, only one signed on to the War Powers Act, which says, hey, War Powers Resolution. This was actually put out in January, which would have been to say to Trump, you can't start a war with Iran without the approval of Congress. And Crystal's saying, no, look, the only one Democrat signed on. Or only one Republican. I'm sorry, there were more than one Democrat. Only one Republican, Massey from Kentucky. So do you know how many she asked him? So let's listen.
One. Is Marjorie?
He says one. So he says one, and she's like, she doesn't want to hear him say one, because it is one. It's Massey.
Liberals banding together and going through the court system and public pressure. That's it. That's all we've seen in this.
So she's saying the only thing there, that was the Democrats and liberals band together to stop Trump. That's not true. They haven't done any. The one thing that really has helped, she mentions the court system, that has had an effect. Maybe some of those town halls, but it was just as much Republicans going to those town halls and complaining and saying, please don't cut our Medicaid, don't cut our Medicare. That may have had some impact, not necessarily Democrats.
The other question is, how do you win elections? So go ahead and address that, and we can talk about the election piece. But real quick, before you get in, as to the earnestness of this MAGA anti-war movement, put element number 3 up on the screen. Do you know? Tell me how many Republicans have signed on to the War Powers Resolution. One. Is Marjorie Taylor Greene? No.
So she says,
no.
He says one, and she says no. It is one. It's one.
No. One. Thomas Massey.
So he says one. He says one. It is no. It is one. It's Thomas Massey. And then she brings up Marjorie Taylor Greene, because Marjorie Taylor Greene has been, to her great credit, very critical of Trump on war issues. Wait, I'm sorry, that we want to see that again.
Okay. No.
So let's get that up on screen again. So Taylor Greene has been good on the war issues. She's been better than most. But what's her? Crystal seems to think she's owning Cenk because it's only Massey. It doesn't include Taylor Greene. But there's only a handful of Democrats as well. This hardly redounds to the benefit of Democrats. If I do the math, you got less than 20. You got 18 Democrats, 1 Republican. That's hardly some great endorsement of the Democratic Party. And I note that some supposedly progressive Democrats aren't even on there, like Raskin. He's not even on that list, for crying out loud. So this is neither one is very good, is the bottom line. Neither party is good. But again, how does that even negatively impact on Cenk's argument? Cenk's argument is we should talk to the base. Not that their leaders are so great. We need to talk to the voters. They're the ones who will be angry. They're the ones we can bring over because the Republicans aren't doing what they said they would do. So this only proves his point. Both parties suck. Let's talk to the Republican voter. Let's talk to MAGA. And the attack, and it's so obviously true. He's so obviously right on this. It's not like you need a rocket scientist to figure this out either. Just like you didn't have to be a genius to figure out Jimmy Dore was 100% right about force the vote. which Cenk got wrong. Cenk got that wrong. But he's right here. And I think maybe he was a little chastened. Maybe he realized, yeah, we can't just be Democratic sheepdogs. We have to recognize the weaknesses, the failures, the corruption of the Democratic Party. So here's The Guardian. Trump's military attack on Iran reveals split among MAGA diehards. There's Marjorie Taylor Greene. This is exactly who Democrats should be talking to. They should talk to Greene. They should talk, and I think they actually have. Isn't AOC doing something with Marjorie Taylor Greene? I think they are. But this is exactly who Democrats should be talking to. The Bannon voters. And I mean, I know he didn't run, so it's not people who vote for Bannon, but the people that Bannon kind of represents. I mean, it's such a no-brainer, and yet these so-called progressives want nothing to do. I guess they're dirty. Is that it? Their fingernails are dirty, so we can't talk to them? Is that the argument? It's crazy. Again, why we can't win. We can't win if people follow these hucksters, these hustlers, these grifters. So more Republican, Gabbard, Tulsi Gabbard. Iran did not restart nuclear weapons program. So he's flat out. This is wrong. We shouldn't be doing this. Don't do it, Trump. I know she came back and she flipped, and it's very embarrassing that she did that and wrong. And it's to her shame and discredit. But she was honest to begin with, and she was the Republican that she was the cabinet nominee that so many Democrats said we can't. You know, she's the worst one. She's worse than Marco Rubio. She's worse than Pam Bondi. No, she wasn't. No, she's better than they are. Again, these are all perfect examples of how there's an opportunity to build a movement outside of both parties. And that's exactly what, if you're a progressive, you want. And so obviously, the Vanguard boys and Crystal and Kyle and National Rational and Mike Figueredo, they're not progressive. Clearly. Look, Marjorie Taylor Greene, the congresswoman from Georgia, Glenn Greenwald did a recent video where he just praises her to the skies. I'm not going to do that. I'm not I'm not a Marjorie Taylor Greene fanboy by any means. But she says some really good stuff here that most Congress members from either party never say. So she says, I don't know anyone in America who's been the victim of a crime or killed by Iran. And then she goes on and, her pet issues, drugs and whatever. And the bottom line is, right, Americans aren't interested in a war with Iran. Most are not. Maybe they'll say it's okay, but it's not something that people really, want. Like they want health care. Taylor Greene is right here on this issue. And she's pretty pointed. This is after Trump even went to war. I've watched our country go to war in foreign lands for foreign causes for as long as I can remember. She calls Vietnam another senseless foreign war. Why wouldn't you reach out to Marjorie Taylor Greene on this? Why wouldn't you reach out to her voters? Why wouldn't you say to her and to her voters, hey, let's build a genuine pro-peace, pro-America, pro-life party? You don't think that would get some traction? I think it would. I don't think there's any doubt it would. But I mean, for whatever reason, we're too good for her. She's, I don't know, she's from Georgia. Listen, look at what she writes here. This is you can say, usually I disagree with her, but at least give her the props for this at a minimum. 37 trillion in debt. All those foreign wars have cost. It's so true. And they haven't benefited us. Instead, we've lost troops. We've lost many of our best young people. And others have been torn apart physically and mentally. She's exactly right. And look, for profits, I'm sick of it. I mean, what more do you want? You can't talk to her? You can't work with her? What more do you want? Now, I don't love this quote. I don't love this. But I'll take it at this point. I can say I support nuclear arms. She makes it, hey, she says the quiet part out loud. Israel's nuclear armed. I can say I support them. Doesn't mean I want to fight a war for them. They're going to go bomb some country. Go ahead. Leave me out of it. I don't want to fight or fund nuclear armed Israel's wars and any other country for that matter. Yeah, I mean, I can endorse that. I don't 100% love it because I don't support Israel's right to defend itself because we've given them the power to do so much damage. So I think we're now required almost to say, no, you can't do this. But she's saying we don't want to give them any more arms, do whatever they want. You're not, and I also have a problem with the framing because they're not defending themselves. But here she's better. She's better than those, quote, fauxgressives. There was some argument, some pushback. Oh, well, Iran backs Hamas, and Hamas killed people. Americans were killed on October 7th. So therefore, we get to bomb Iran. That's the response. Well, I mean, I don't know how do you even answer that? I mean, it's so strange. There are Americans who are in Israel. Presumably, they support Israel. I'm not saying I wanted to see anyone killed. But what Hamas did was against an occupying power. It was against a country that is oppressing its people, persecuting them, killing them, raping them, torturing them. That doesn't make it okay. But it makes it understandable. It makes this hand-wringing and this outrage weird, very sus. And even the European Council on Foreign Relations kind of explains it pretty well here, why you really can't exactly condemn Iran, even though they don't like Iran at all. Here's what they say. They say, hey, Iran wasn't behind the October 7 attacks. They say may not be directly. In other words, they're not. But Tehran has worked with Hamas and jihad. And why? Because of the way the Middle East is set up right now with the United States and NATO, Western Europe saying you have to be on for Israel. There's no option for Hamas. There's nobody else who will help them, who will provide support. And they need it because who else is going to stand up to Israel? Who else is going to try to do something to protect? And when I say stand up to Israel, Israel's torturing, raping, occupying, stealing the land of Palestinians. I can't condemn Iran for that. I certainly can't say it's okay to bomb a country that has, according to our own Director of National Intelligence, no nuclear weapons program. All right, I got a clip from the humanist. That's who Mike Figueredo is, the humanist. I'm not going to play it. We're past that. The final point I'm going to make is this idea that somehow there's a moral superiority, because the only way you can justify a refusal to even reach out to MAGA is if you can really prove you have some sort of moral superiority. They're going to somehow taint you. But there's no such moral superiority. Even those Democrats who voted for the War Powers Resolution Act to restrain Trump, all of them voted either for, if they're in the Senate, and that includes someone like a Chris Van Hollen, who I really like in some issues, they all voted for this guy, the guy who called Trump chicken if he wouldn't bomb Iran. That's who they all voted for. And if they didn't vote for him and they're in the House, they voted for the congressman from Wall Street in Israel, Hakeem Jeffries. So they're not moral. They have no moral superiority. They have no claim to being somehow better than the MAGA voter. If Taco Trump is already folding, in other words, if Trump always chickens out, is unwilling to attack Iran, he's portraying. There's no way you can legitimately argue that we on the left shouldn't be trying to build a mass movement that includes many Trump supporters. And yet that's exactly what these fauxgressives have been trying to do. And that's why these grifters, and that's why throw them out. Be done with them. You got other better options for your video. Satisfy your video Jones. All right, that's going to do it for me. Have a great rest of your day. I will be back tomorrow. I think we have an Arlen Tuesday coming up.